roll like a speeding bullet. You join me inside the cabin of the 2020 Ford Mustang Bullitt, a special edition Mustang based off the 1968 cult classic starring Steve McQueen and a Mustang GT fastback named Bullitt. This is the third iteration of the Mustang Bullitt. They had one in 2001, 2008, and then 2019, carrying on for the 2020 model year. And that's pretty much all I want to say about its relationship with the movie, because what I actually want to find out in today's review is whether the Mustang Bullitt is genuinely a good sports car or if it's just a piece of nostalgia. That's today on Miles Per Hour. And there it is, the 2020 Ford Mustang Bullitt, painted in Dark Highland Green. The only other color you could paint your Bullitt is shadow black. And between the two, I prefer the Dark Highland Green. It's both a throwback to the movie car and just looks very unique on the road. Before I get too deep into this exterior walk around, you know what's coming. Let's talk about the channel and how you should subscribe to it. And not just that, hit that bell to get notified. I've got daily videos for you. Walk-arounds, POV day drives, POV night drives, live Q&As, and reviews like this one, so you don't want to miss any of that great car content. Hit subscribe, hit the bell. And if you like the content, you want to support what I'm doing, you can do that a couple ways. You can get a Miles Per Hour t-shirt like the one I'm wearing, in whatever color you'd like, or you can support me on Patreon. Become a patron and get some perks, but more importantly, just keep the car content flowing. And with that out of the way, let's get back to the Mustang Bullitt. We'll address this in the interior walk around, but the only change between 2019 and 2020 is the addition of a 4G LTE Wi-Fi hotspot. So between this car, this model year, and last model year, you won't notice anything different. But as we get into the exterior here, the real call-outs to tell you you're looking at a Bullitt versus a standard Mustang GT are going to be first seen very easily here at the front with the fact that it is debadged. You do not have the prancing pony in that grille. Instead, you have a completely blank black mesh grille with a chrome surround. We'll see chrome a few other places on the car, but I think that looks great. Down here, lower air dam, also black mesh. Front splitter with plastic, made of plastic. And then moving on to the side, standard LED headlights and daytime running lights. Turn signals are going to be down here, along with your fog lights. Down there is non-functional honeycomb blocked off vents. I kind of wish that was functional, because you have to imagine you need to bring some cool air to the brakes and tires for high performance situations, and they chose not to do that. Wonder why. Up here on the hood, this is going to be standard Mustang GT. You have these heat extractors. They are functional. Those are pass-throughs, not blocked off. And they're very subtle on this Dark Highland Green or the Shadow Black. But front end, big thumbs up for me. I like the design quite a bit. Moving to the side, we see some more throwbacks here with these torque thrust style 5-spoke black gloss wheels, size 19-inch, and those have a chrome-ish looking, it's like a brushed metal finish around the border, keeping the continuity of chrome on the car. And then up here, some very large 6-piston Brembo brakes with red painted calipers. Note that we do not have vented or slotted rotors, but the brakes are still very much up to snuff. Haven't taken this car to a track, so I don't know how they would wear with heat as the day goes on. But I like those. Black plastic sill at the bottom there. And here you can see the metal flake to the paint in direct sunlight It's rather pretty. It's a nice emerald effect. So good job on the paint, Ford. Body color matching mirrors, and then more chrome for the window surrounds, which is all fine and good, but then you come over here and you look down on the door and you just see a disconnect here. This chrome strip versus the door's chrome strip are off quite a ways. Attention to detail. Not perfect. Fastback flowing in there just like the 68 car. Looks super good. I love the profile of this car. That's a thumbs up. And then moving towards the back here, we see these LED tail lights. They have sequential turn signals. That's just standard Mustang fare, but I do like their design. And the sloped tail or trunk here. And one thing about the Bullitt is that it has a spoiler delete, so a very tidy rear end. I prefer it without the spoiler. This looks super clean. That gets my seal of approval. And then instead of a GT badge, you have the Bullitt insignia. It's my favorite of the Bullitt badges. There are quite a few on the car. I'll point them out. But this is my favorite with the sort of target. Down below, we've got a set of 4 exhaust ports painted black. Big burly things. And the exhaust is uniquely tuned on the Bullitt. It has active valves. Makes a good noise. And that pretty much sums it up for the exterior of the Mustang Bullitt. So let's go talk about that interior. And on our way in, we'll note we've got smart key access. We can leave the key in our pocket, pull on the handle to unlock, put our finger on that sensor to lock it. And before I open the door, look at that. Look at the disconnect. That's even worse than on the passenger side. I shake my head at you. Open the door. And of the 3 options available for the Bullitt, this car has all 3. 2 of them you're going to see on the interior. One is this set of Recaro sport bucket seats trimmed in leather. Very nice, supportive, yet comfortable seats. Ton of lateral bolstering. If you've got a racing harness that can fit through these gaps here in the seat. We've got Recaro stitched in green. I love the continuity there. The green, Highland Green stitching is throughout the cabin. They kept it up here with the seats. No heating, no ventilation for these seats, but again, they are very comfortable. The second option is the electronics package, which includes a 12-speaker Bang & Olufsen sound system, blind spot monitoring, hello, with rear cross traffic alerts, and navigation for your infotainment. The other stuff's all standard, so even if you don't get these Recaros, you will get leather trimmed seats. And I think those actually may be heated, so you actually lose out on the heating by going with Recaros. But you've got a standard heated leather wrapped steering wheel, dual zone climate control, that 12-inch digital gauge cluster that I'll get to in a second, 8-inch Sync 3 infotainment with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and the only difference between 2019 and 2020, as I said, is that Wi-Fi hotspot, so you can tap into that. Let's talk about material quality in here. It's a mixed bag here on the door. We've got some injection molding up here that's soft to the touch, and as we get on down, we see this line here that separates the harder, scratchy plastics from that injection molding. Some leather, either genuine leather or leather-like material for the door armrest, and this Highland Green stitching with perforated leather. That looks really nice. That brings up the vibe a little bit, but what brings it right on down is this plastic panel right here. This is so cheap, so cheap. Plastic's this bad at this height, if you will, in the cabin. They're not way down there by the transmission tunnel or something like that. They're up here. This is something you're going to touch all the time. This is really cheap. That's not good vibes right there. You've got a glossed metal looking surface. This is plastic, as is the door handle, but it looks like metal. That's neat. Down here, that hard scratcher plastic. And then we've got a chrome border for your speaker covers. Again, that's the Bang & Olufsen sound system on this car. And let's look at those back seats. So the way you get into the back, there's a handle on the back of the seat. You pull it, seat goes up, but it doesn't slide forward. If you want it to slide forward, you have to go down, grab the bar, and then pull the seat forward. It's hard to do one-handed. Anyway, so that's going to be your opening to get to the back seats. And it was hard to see what the legroom looked like before I slid the seat forward, but that's kind of an indicator. That seat was about level with mine, and you can see there's just not much legroom. These are definitely going to be seats for kids, and they're going to have to be small kids, and I'll show you why. So I'm doing this for you guys. I just want it to be clear. I'm going to climb back here. Oh boy, okay, let's unbuckle that. And here we go. All right. I'm in the seat. Oh, I'm in the seat, and I'll show you why this is a problem. This is me sitting as upright as I can. That's so bad. So they're super shallow, effectively. Shallow seat to rear glass or headliner distance. So the kid is going to have to be small if he's back here. Legroom wise, I mean, maybe a kid's legs will fit back there, but I'm going to try to put the seat. Actually, this is going to be pointless because the seat is already slid forward. You won't even be able to see what it was normally like. So yeah, I've got legroom here, but that's with the seat slid all the way forward. So the driver has to be real small. Me at my 6-foot frame would not fit there and here. Maybe not even there and a kid back here. That'd be tough. All right, so that's the rear seat setup. I don't even want to spend much time back here, but yeah, that's what it looks like, okay? Now we know. We can note the Bullitt tread plates here. These look really high-end. I like the font. That's neat. Ooh, and it has texture to it. Cool. It's not completely flush. Seats themselves are not power operated, so you do have an angle, seat back angle here, and then a raising and lowering of the seat there. But let's hop on in, get a closer look. Close the door, hear what that sounds like. Ooh, it's a good sound. And then looking at the steering wheel, I already mentioned that it's heated, leather wrapped, nice thickness to it. And then we've got our turn stalks over here, turn signal stalks. That's what that's gonna sound like, that's fun. Another Bullitt badge here, so we saw the tread plates, another Bullitt badge, blup, blup. Yep, yes, Bullitt badge with the target on the center of the steering wheel, more chrome around that. And this is definitely not leather, not injection molded, that's just harder plastic for the airbag cover. So many buttons, my goodness. Lots of buttons on the steering wheel. I mean, that's great that you can control a lot of things, but that looks cluttered. So over here we've got the My Mode button. Press that, and that brings up a menu here. You can control what My Mode is. It is one of the 6, I think, driving modes that you can have. So you can customize certain things with My Mode. Here you can see we've got normal drive mode, effectively. Launch control is off, normal suspension, comfort steering, and normal exhaust. You cannot, unlike the GT500, you cannot independently control the exhaust from other things. You can independently adjust the steering via these toggles and the mode, but not the exhaust. So basically, if you go into sport mode as your My Mode setting, it is going to automatically control that. So moving back into My Mode, or the My Little Pony, I don't know what it's called. Exhaust mode, you can adjust that. I want that in track. I want it loud all the time. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Back. Track apps, that is part of the Bullitt package. It basically has the Mustang GT Performance package as standard on the Mustang Bullitt. Performance shift indicator, I've set that up as track, so it will give you lights on the gauge cluster to show you when it's time to shift. Launch control, rev match. I have that turned off, but that is a feature for this car. You can have it do auto rev match downshifts. I like to keep it off to practice. I am not in a manual car all that often, so anytime I have to practice is good. Gauges, you can kind of vary those a little bit. I don't think you can change much with those, to be honest. Configure my gauges. What does that look like? You just show some of the information. My color, this is fun. So as standard, this car has ambient lighting and 3 different kind of like tiers of lighting. So you have the main color, a secondary color, and then my color. Primary, secondary. Ambient light. Ambient light will show up here in sort of the door handles, in the cup holders, and then I think in the footwells. But if you're changing your primary color, it's going to show up on the gauges. That's pretty cool at night. I'll show you some of that footage from my POV night drive. And then the gauge cluster. So we can change all of this. Let's go to change the primary color. Right now I have it as purple, so you can see like the fuel gauge is purple. That will not stay there for very long. The fuel economy in this car is awful. I'll actually tell you about it now. It is 14 city, 22 highway, 17 combined. And the 17 combined is really optimistic, because if you drive this car any quicker than just a leisurely pace, you're going to be going through that fuel fast, as in my case. So here are the different colors you can change. But let's see. So let's go green on that. So you'll change that. Secondary color, I want that to be purple now. That's going to change the gauge cluster color. So you can see you can change those things. I love that ambient lighting is standard. That's pretty cool. All right, now going back over here on the left, we've got the tachometer and your gear. I like that it permanently will show you what gear you're in. That's always nice. On the right, we've got the speedo and your speed right in the center, digitally, and then of course with the analog simulating needle on the outside. All right, on the left, volume controls, media stuff, cruise control. No adaptive cruise control, no lane keeping assist, no auto emergency braking, none of the kind of active safety features apart from the blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic that are as part of a package, not standard. Infotainment, so we've got an 8-inch Sync 3 infotainment as standard. It's kind of getting on in years. It needs an update. It looks very flat, unlike the 3D displays that we're seeing in cars these days. It's a bit slow. It does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as standard. That helps it out quite a bit. The selection of redundant buttons are good. So you have some climate control buttons down here, a physical volume, physical tuner. So those are redundancies of the things you can actually control in the infotainment. So I'm going to give it a C for infotainment. Sometimes responsive, but at least it has Apple CarPlay. That maybe it's a C+. All right, so up here on the dashboard, we have this metal look trim. It looks like aluminum. It's actually plastic. That's a bummer. But then we have our oil pressure and our vacuum pressure. Here is yet another Bullitt badge. We've got the number, the chassis number listed there, and then the Bullitt badge there. But again, like it's within a very hard plastic backing, so that's not cool. Highland Green stitching up here on the dashboard. This is injection molding. This is not leather, but it's genuine stitching. I hate when they do fake stitching. That's at least real stitching in injection molding. Your B&O for your Bang & Olufsen sound system, or your body and odor. Glove box over here of reasonable size. Whoa. Whoa. And then one of the call-outs that you're in a Bullitt, you look in the, I mean, even if you couldn't tell from the exterior, which you should be able to, but you look in those windows and you see the cue ball shifter and you know, this is a Bullitt. 6-speed, throws are pretty short, and then you lift up here, put it in reverse. A pretty low resolution backup camera, but hey, it's a backup camera and it is wide angle. That's neat. I showed you these toggles here, and fun fact about these, they only go up. So if you're going through your drive modes and you just miss the mode that you want to be in, you can't go backwards. You can't press down. You have to go up again through the whole roster of drive modes, dry modes, Sport Plus, track, drag strip, snow, wet weather, normal, my mode. So yeah, those are all your drive modes, and you have to go up on the toggle. Your steering you can change between comfort, normal, and sport steering. And then you have your traction control. You can hold it up and it will turn it all the way off. Engine start stop button with the red border, I like that. Tiny little cubby up here. You do have a USB port there, and then a DC socket off to the right. Metal look trim here, again plastic. Then more injection molding and Green Highland stitching. That's pretty nice. And this here, this border in this is injection molding, but this is that leather-like material that may save your knee as you're pressing on that. This is harder plastic, a real e-brake. Look at that, a handbrake, not a button, genuine handbrake. I love the sound of that clicking into place. I'll miss that. Cup holders here, and your key. Kind of generic, not Bullitt specific key. Mustang on the back. Unlock, lock, and press twice for opening the trunk, and of course, your alarm. This is leather wrapped, and so that is standard on the Bullitt. And you've got more of that Dark Highland Green stitching. Get in here, you got your second USB port. No idea what that does. I've turned it around a couple times to see what it does. I don't know. If you know, please comment below. Help me out, because I don't know what it is. And then up here, we've got a very cheapy plastic covered backup camera and a really cheapy plastic piece up here with non-LED interior lights. I think those would be LED by now for 2020, but hey, they're not. And then we've got our sun visor, pretty wide vanity mirror, look at that. And yes, the important, you've got your garage door openers here, but look at the important thing, add slides. That's fun. That is fun. No head-up display, but that's okay. And you know what? I think it's really time for the large bottle test, so I'm gonna get that. Oh, what did I say? It's big bottle test now. Let me grab that and let's see if it fits. All right, now I have my big bottle for our big bottle test. It's a Nalgene size water bottle. We're gonna see if it'll fit in the front cup holders. Oh, it's so close. I am shocked at how close that is. But I have a feeling, yeah, you take a turn, that's gonna go flying. So close, but no cigar. You might be able to shove it in there. I would not trust it. I wouldn't trust it. All right, door pockets. Nope, it's a big old NO. Center console, you're our last hope. No, so the big bottle does not fit in the Mustang Bullitt. It probably fits in the glove box. I'm not even gonna do that test. It's gonna be a fail. I'm sorry, Mustang Bullitt, you failed the big bottle test. Now, last thing I do wanna show you is the trunk space. So let's go take a gander. And if you didn't want to press the trunk release button, there is a release button right here. And then you lift. And you will see 13.5 cubic feet of space, but the way it's designed makes for a fairly narrow trunk opening. So the distance from here to here is pretty narrow. You do have a widening here, so if you wanted to put golf clubs in there, that would be all right. But because of this sub and how far that comes in, there's my backpack for reference. Very wide items are not going to fit easily in the Mustang Bullitt, but those seats do split fold, so you can get longer items in there. This is not a utility vehicle, it's a sports car, so that is acceptable. It's not class-leading trunk space, but it's acceptable. Okay? All right. Now, it's time to not sit on our water bottle. Oh boy. It is time to rev up this bad boy. Ooh. Take it for a drive. All right, Bullitt. Let's have some fun. Oh, that's a nice noise. Oh, and that's quick. Okay. Mustang Bullitt is quick. Like a bullet. Sorry. I'm sorry. Let's talk about the engine. we've got a 5-liter Coyote V8 motor pulled from the Mustang GT, but given some GT350 goodies, like larger throttle bodies, an open element air intake system, and an ECU tune to button it all up nicely together. That gives us 480 horsepower as opposed to the standard GT's 460, but we have the same 420 pound-feet of torque. That makes the Bullitt's 0 to 60 time 4.5 seconds and the top speed 163 miles an hour. But as I've learned from a week behind the wheel of the Bullitt, it really isn't a specs car. The specs are good, they're not incredible, but it's not a specs car. It's about the sound of that Coyote motor heard through the active valve exhaust system that they tuned specifically for the Bullitt. It sounds sensational, and you can choose whether to have that quiet or loud based on your drive mode. And it's about this 6-speed manual gearbox, the only transmission you can get for this car, the cue ball shifter that feels so right in the hands. This just tells me, the fact that they only give this car manual tells me that Ford didn't want everyone to buy the Bullitt. They wanted people who love driving, people who need the engagement of a manual transmission. Those are the folks that buy this car. They would have given it an automatic if they wanted everyone to buy it. That's not the case with the Bullitt. So it's the theater of the car, it's the engagement with the car, and then it's also the way it goes around a corner, because they didn't just give it the powertrain improvements, they gave it stiffer front springs, a beefier rear sway bar, and then a K-member brace. So all that helps it go around a corner that much better. Then you've got a limited slip differential as standard, and the 6-piston Brembo brakes up front. That makes it a really good corner carver, and I actually have a set of corners up here. I'm gonna create some space, and we're going for it. All right. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty solid. That is pretty solid indeed. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. And I'm ashamed to say I did that without going into Sport Plus mode. That is the mode I should have been in, because the Magneride dampers that are an option for this vehicle and worth every single penny would have been activated, they're activated all the time, but they would have already gone into a stiffer setting. The car would have cornered even flatter than I just experienced. So there's a ceiling even higher for how this car can go around a corner than what I just experienced. That's a bit of good news. So the Magneride dampers not just make it such that the car will soften up for bumps like the ones I'm experiencing right now, and these, but they will stiffen up to give you a flatter cornering car. By going into Sport Plus mode, which again I didn't do, I'm so embarrassed, you would have had a steering wheel that has a bit more resistance, sharper throttle response, and then those Magneride dampers would have gone into a stiffer setting. There is also a track mode, and that's going to make the ride punishingly hard. So I wouldn't go into that mode on a daily basis. And then we also have a My mode. Now My mode's a weird one because unlike some cars that have an independent setting, or an individual setting I should say, where you can change just about everything, My mode doesn't let you change everything. You can change whether you want launch control on or off. You can change how loud you want the exhaust to be by going into a specific drive mode as the default. So My mode sort of like highlights a drive mode, but it doesn't give you the individual calibrations like the sound of the exhaust and the suspension. You have to use a high-lit drive mode to be your baseline. So those are all the drive modes, along with a wet weather mode and a drag mode. Not even going to talk about those for the Mustang Bullitt, giving you a good view of the versatility of this car. It can truly be a daily driver with the really loud exhaust all the time. You can make it a little quieter. It can truly be a daily driver thanks to the Magneride dampers and thanks to the fact that these seats, I don't know how the standard seats are, but these big, burly Recaro Sport Bucket seats are really very comfortable. And apart from the sound of that exhaust, the wind and road noises in here is really not bad. The visibility is pretty darn good, actually. Way better than the Chevy Camaro SS, because you have that rear window there and you don't have a giant C-pillar. So it can be used every day without feeling like you're punishing yourself. And then, of course, as we showed with the performance, it's got that in spades. It's got the noise, it's got the theater. is it the right way to spend your $47,000-ish? So this car starts at $47,810, excluding the $1,000 gas guzzler charge that we're going to have for all of the cars that I'm mentioning here, because they suck in terms of fuel economy, all of them. Is that the best way to go, or should you consider the Dodge Challenger RT Scat Pack? That's going to be right around $47,000. It's going to make 485 horsepower, so a whopping 5 more than the Mustang Bullitt. The 0 to 60 is going to be about the same, 4.5 seconds, and the top speed is going to be higher, 175 miles an hour. Then you have the Chevy Camaro SS with the 1LE track package, is also going to be right around $47,000. That's going to make less power than this, 455, and it's going to get to 60 somehow quicker than this, 4.2 seconds, and its top speed is also going to be somehow higher than this, 165 miles an hour. So performance, along with, as I've experienced, the Camaro chassis, which is superb. They dialed that in just really well done. I think performance, the Camaro SS with a 1LE pack might have the edge on both the Bullitt and the Challenger RT Scat Pack wide body. But in terms of looks, I find that the Camaro is fairly cartoonish looking with the redesign that they gave it, and it doesn't look like muscular, macho, muscle car. So in that regard, I think the Challenger RT Scat Pack wide body or the Bullitt have the edge. The Challenger may have the edge for me. Interior comfort and room, the Challenger also has the edge there, but in terms of interior technology and I think the design, it's going to be Bullitt. I think the Camaro needs work there, and I think that the Challenger is getting on in years. So the Bullitt with the infotainment that we've got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, again, you can get that on both of the cars that I mentioned as competitors, but now we've got an LTE Wi-Fi hotspot, we've got a digital gauge cluster, that is not on either of the cars that are rivaling this. I think the interior is going to go to the Bullitt, and that means that the driving impressions are our final consideration here. And I've driven all 3 of these cars, and I think that in terms of fun factor, not in terms of razor precision, because the Camaro probably has that one, in terms of fun factor, it's Challenger or this, and I think Bullitt has to pull ahead, because the Magneride dampers are so good, whereas the Challenger is working with adaptive dampers, but they just don't work quite as well as the Magneride, and the theater of this car is just spectacular. So I think that the Bullitt might have the narrow edge over the Challenger RT Scat Pack. Camaro's not even in the ballpark for me. So that makes it the best way to spend just under $50,000 to start. This car is tested as $54,000. You got to keep that in mind. But if you want to start at just under $50,000, this is the best way to spend your money. And it might be my favorite Mustang just in general. I love the GT350, but that car is much pricier. I hate ending at stoplight. And it with acceleration.